Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully this is the last one.
To itself as I am this, samsara will continue for it. Pleasure and pain, pleasure and pain, life after life, seeking to protect this body and mind, to give it lot of pleasure, to avoid the pain for this body and mind. It goes on like that. Now what is spirituality? It is shifting the reference of the I from body-mind, mind-body, to consciousness, Purusha. Shifting the reference of the I from the products of Prakriti back to Purusha.
Sorry. So pause already so soon. I guess my thing is why is samsara continue to go on? Even regardless if your self wants to stay in this world, factually speaking, this is the false you, or Atmanturiya is the true you. And that's what I'm wondering, like, what's keeping you here? Why is realization the only way to liberation? I wonder, did I miss it in the other videos that I reacted to? It's only when you realize that you're true self that you are liberated. But why do you have to have realization to be liberated? Why are you not automatically liberated? Because your true self is liberated anyway, so whether you realize it or not, you're always liberated. And to me it makes it seem like this physical form has a mind of its own that's keeping your true self from being liberated, as though this I forgot, maybe samsara is the right word, I'm not sure, but this form, the false form, is holding back the true form. But there is no secondary form, so the false form and the true form are one and the same. Like he said, that you are always who you are, but you just never see it. So you're always liberated. Why are you constantly being reborn if you've always been liberated? Has that been answered and I just completely missed it? And that's the question I just thought of whenever we talked about that. It doesn't make sense. Like, you've never had chains, so why aren't you free? You may think that you have chains, but your true self has always been free. It's not like your true self can't see itself, in a sense. The mind and body can see itself restricted, but the true self of who you are is not, and never was. I guess Sadhguru was talking about the donkey. If that's the story I remember correctly, where the donkey was always free, but because he's been trained for so long that it knows to just stay by the tree, he no longer has to lock up the donkey. If I remember that story correctly. Hopefully we'll get some kind of answers throughout the rest of this video or other videos.
You wanted to say?
In the genealogy, then Sankhya is the oldest, and Advaita and Yoga are...
They're later. If you think about it that way. Swami Vivekananda said Kapila, the founder of the Sankhya system, he is the oldest philosopher, the first philosopher of the human race. Kapila. You may find interesting similarities with Advaita, because we are all familiar with Advaita, and interesting dissimilarities also with Advaita. What are the similarities? Pure consciousness. I am consciousness. When Shankaracharya sings, Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the ego, I am not the memory. You can easily see, check, yes, I am not these things. I can cross them out. Then he sings, Chidananda rupaha shivoham, I am of the nature of Shiva, I am of the nature of consciousness and bliss. Correct. But what is the difference? The difference is, first of all, in Advaita Vedanta, there is only one consciousness. There are not many consciousnesses. We are not many. We are one consciousness at that level. Many bodies and minds, but one consciousness. That's one. Second,
Sorry. So that's, yeah. So all our consciousness is always liberated. It's never chained up. So our bodies and mind may be chained to the physical realm, which is true. I can get that, but it's not like our true self all of a sudden just comes back into rebirth. When we die, we're literally liberated, and then when a body comes back, it just takes a little bit of that consciousness, a fresh new consciousness. So I think this goes back to the samsara, how it progresses from one body to the next, and that may be the thing that was not explained, or maybe I missed it or something, or maybe I've not really watched too deep into it because I don't quite remember. I know I've heard one of the Swamis, the English Swami, talk about how it passes on from one bucket to the next, but it doesn't. I don't quite understand why that is.
Advaita Vedanta, most importantly, Prakriti is not apart from Purusha. Prakriti is not a real thing separate from Purusha. Prakriti is the power of Purusha. Purusha itself is projecting all this. That beautiful story by what's his name? The book, Alan Watts. Do you remember the story? What is this whole life? The story goes like this. God existed from eternity to eternity. Then God, because existing eternity to eternity all alone is boring, so God got very bored. And God wanted to play, but did not have any friends. Whom will God play with? So he thought for a long time, but because he is God, he is very clever. So he got a solution. What is the solution? God pretended to be not God. Now there were two. God and not God. Now the play could start. What is God pretending to be not God? God pretending to be not God, Prakriti and the products of Prakriti. And now the play could start. But what is the problem? Because God is awfully good at what he does.
He falls for
He's an
it.
expert, really great, because he's God. So he is really good at what he does. So when he pretended to be not God, he did such a thorough job of it, now he can't remember who he is.
And this goes back to, well, something I was actually thinking about again a little bit earlier. I don't know if it's related, but it kind of it seems related to me. The fact that, you know, God, just some arbitrary God, is so omnipotent, all-powerful. So if he's all-powerful, can he create something that he cannot lift? If he cannot create something he cannot lift, he's not all-powerful. If he can create something that he cannot lift, then he's still not all-powerful, because he cannot lift it. All-powerful mean you can lift it. All-powerful mean you can create something that you cannot lift, but lift it at the same time, which therefore you did not create something you cannot lift. And it kind of, and that plays into this because the fact that God is supposed to be all-knowing in this one, I assume, but he becomes faulty by the sense that he is all-knowing, or I'm sorry, he's all-powerful, that he can create something which he himself believes in, which is not supposed to happen because he's all-knowing as well. So he should always know that he is God, and the things that he create are not God. But yet he created something that he fell for. Therefore, he is not all-knowing, or there's a flaw in this God. It's not perfect. Sorry, and that's the same thing with the fact of the power, omnipotent. The fact that God cannot create something that he cannot lift. He can always lift something because it's all powerful. Therefore, his fault is the fact that he's incapable of doing something.
And now God, pretending to be not God, totally forgotten that he is God, is searching for himself, or his own real nature, and that is samsara. What a beautiful story, because the whole story of Sankhya, which is borrowed entirely by yoga, the story of Sankhya is exactly that. What is the whole story according to Kapila, according to Sankhya? What's going on here is Purusha and Prakriti are interacting. Prakriti does two things for Purusha. Purusha does one thing for Prakriti. Purusha lends illumination, consciousness, experience. Without Purusha, no experience is possible. Without consciousness, no experience is possible. Just take an ordinary product of Prakriti, say a computer, which can do everything. It has got intellect. It has got not a conscious sense of self, but a sense of self. It can act as if it knows itself distinct from others. And it can consider things. It has got sensors. It has got like a robot or something. All of these things are possible for a computer. Yet there is no internal experience. There is no subjective experience. We were talking about it yesterday. Deep Blue defeated Grandmaster. Grandmaster may feel humiliated. Why? Purusha, connected, consciousness connected with this intellect. This intellect has been defeated. And the flash of defeat here is experienced by the Purusha as humiliation. But in the case of the computer, this is not there. Only these things are going on. There is no internal experience.
Okay, did they not say that everything is consciousness? Even the computer itself is consciousness, is it not? It's not to say that it has the same, it should have the same consciousness as us, because everything has consciousness. Everything is illuminated by consciousness, even rocks, but they don't have intellect like humans. Computers can have intellect like humans. It's just going to be different. And now, whether we judge that to be something, say, hey, computers can think like humans, or we can say, no, computers don't think like humans. I mean, technically speaking, in my opinion, let me just put it that way, humans and computers, almost the same thing. Almost the same thing. Our brain is just the hard drive. The SSD, well, actually, it could be just a hard drive, spindle drive for me. But yeah, we have short-term memory, RAM, long-term memory, hard drive. We have a CPU to compute problems. We can remember things, which is the hard drive again, to make better decisions. Our decision making is based on past experiences, which the computer does too. It has a logic tree where it goes down certain paths, say this is the best decision. It needs power, like we do. We need food. What else? I mean, and it just needs ways of movement, which can be done with a robotic body. And again, the Turiya or Turiya Atman Brahman is illuminating everything, or everything is Brahman. So
Prakriti is illumined by Purusha, and Prakriti gives experience to Purusha of two types. Bhoga apavarga. Bhoga means experience. What kind of experience? Pleasure and pain. Sukha dukkha. And apavarga is a very ancient word for liberation. Moksha, nirvana, kaivalya. One of the most ancient words is apavarga. Now out of use these days. But 3,000-4,000 years ago, apavarga means withdrawal or release. Prakriti gives that. So what does Prakriti give? Body, mind, ego, intellect, a universe. Go out there and play. Have fun and suffer. All of these things, whatever you can experience, the worst of sufferings, the greatest of achievements, everything, life after life, human life, animal life, plant life, all of this you experience. At one time, this soul, which is Purusha plus Prakriti, it wants freedom from it all. Can I become all? Can I become free of these limited existences? And Prakriti then says, all right, come to Yoga Sutra. Here is the book for you. Come to Vedanta retreat. And so the path to liberation is opened up by Prakriti. Both are given by Prakriti. I'm coming to you, both of you. Notice how in Vedanta this whole idea became saying that the keys to Brahma-jnana are in the hands of the Divine Mother. So you have to please the Divine Mother because she will let you free. Spirituality and materiality, both are in the realm of Maya.
Sorry. He said earlier that Prakriti, oh my gosh, I can't say that word right. Prakriti supplies Purusha with experience, but it's unaffected by it, right? It's always pure, unaffected by experience, but it can experience it, but just unaffected by it. Is that correct? So I'm trying to figure out. He's talking about is it Sankara? I can't remember the yoga, the particular school of yoga. Is it? It's been so long, and I've only reacted to just one video of each of the schools. But I'm assuming he's saying that this was taken very specifically from one school, which Vedanta did take and accept as true. Let's go back. So 535. Freedom from all because 5535.
Time, this soul, which is Purusha plus Prakriti, it wants freedom from it all. Can I become all? It wants this. All of this you play, have fun, and suffer. All of these things, whatever you.
Let me find it real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so I found it. It's right here.
So, Prakriti is illumined by Purusha, and Prakriti gives experience to Purusha of two types.
Experience to Purusha. I thought basically that Purusha and Atman it seems to be the same to me. So let me say it that way. It's a little bit easier for me to say it. Or let me say Purusha. But anyways, it illumines the questions. It illumines your experience. But it's not necessarily given directly to it. It's unaffected by experience, unaffected by Prakriti. Oh, I am terrible at these pronunciations. Prakriti. I'm sure I butchered that. But anyways, it's unaffected by that. Prakriti shows Purusha the experience. So I guess it does, but it's unaffected by the experience, which is kind of weird. If you're unaffected by it, why do you even need it? There's no point in having something if it doesn't affect you, right? I mean, it's kind of like feeding a robot food. Say there's a digestive, not a digestive system, but a path. But it literally is just it's a hole in the mouth and a hole in the butt, and it just goes straight through. It does nothing. So what's the point of giving it food if it just does nothing except just goes down through the tube? So it literally unaffected. The robot's unaffected by the food, but yet you give it food. You know, it doesn't affect the robot. So Prakriti doesn't affect Purusha. So why is it giving it an experience? Now I understand that Purusha may need to say, I need to do this, I need to do that to answer the questions, but to give it experience like joy and happiness, it's unaffected by joy, happiness, and sadness in the world. So it's not relevant for it to get those things. The only thing that's relevant is the questions that needs to be answered because you need to do something, you need to do this, do that. And that's where it comes into play, and from what I understand it so far. Alright, so I'll be right back, and we'll get back to the spot where we're at. Okay, let's get started again.
Yes. The Anand aspect of it? Yeah, they don't mention it. It is awareness and existence, but not bliss is not mentioned. Whereas Sankhya does not mention bliss, yoga does not mention bliss. It is of the nature of peace, beyond suffering. That's it. It's very interesting. The most ancient philosophies, Buddhism, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, they talk about overcoming suffering, the second arrow. And leave you there. That's it. You are beyond suffering.
That's kind of the thing I was saying earlier. I don't like the idea of bliss. It's not like, I want to suffer or I don't want happiness. But to say bliss, it's like you're overly joyed or overly happy. That's that definition of how I understand bliss. And the way I like to say understand things is this realization doesn't make you blissed out or happy or joyful, but makes you not suffering is the word I can say it, which is what he's explaining right here. And that's, I've said that earlier, but I've heard no one else in a sense say it that way, because again, like I said, I think That's how I like to view it, as when you come to this realization that you're not suffering anymore. It's not that you're joyful or happy, but you're not suffering anymore. That's interesting.
But even more ancient are the Upanishads, Vedanta, which talks about ananda, bliss, joy. So, but the joy, definitely, you have to understand, it's not a feeling. To have any kind of feeling, particular experience, particular knowledge, what do you need? This. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Now let's go on a little further. Yes.
One quick question, Hamlet. So you said that in Vedanta, Purusha and Prakriti are like fire and the power to burn. Whereas in the Yoga Sutras,
They're separate.
they are separate. So does that then mean that Prakriti cannot exist without Purusha? Can Purusha exist without Prakriti?
In Sankhya or Yoga, Purusha and Prakriti can exist separately. They do exist separately. Yeah. Matter, time, space, matter, energy is an independent reality. Consciousness is an independent reality. They interact, and when they interact in ignorance, samsara results. This is very much like what David Chalmers is proposing as panpsychism now. What is materialism? What is the problem of materialism in modern science? They are saying, basically modern science is saying, this is real. They don't talk about sattva, rajas, tamas. They talk in terms of matter, time, space, energy. And this is real. And what is Purusha? What is consciousness? This is born from this. This is also a product. Like all of this is also a product of nature. In a physical body, living brain, consciousness somehow originates. But the trick is in that somehow. How? Somehow is not an answer. How? And if you cannot answer that how, then the hard problem of consciousness comes in. And David Chalmers says, we may have to admit a crazy idea that matter is fundamental and real, time, space, matter, energy, and one more fundamental thing could be consciousness. If you say that, you are back to 5,000 years ago, what Kapila said.
So again, look, I mean, it's not necessarily I mean, we could, again, like the theory of gravity. It's not a proven fact, but there's so many things supporting it that it's kind of accepted as fact. And this could be the exact same thing. The Atman itself could be a theory, the theory of Atman, the theory of Brahman. But again, much like a lot of things that were done in the past, you know, we had to kind of accept it at the time, but you should not accept it 100%. It should be like, well, this is as far as we know, this is as far as science has come, so this is what we kind of have to accept, and we continue to delve into this theory and to see if we can't break it, break it. And if we can't, whatever we use to break it has now become what supports it. Because the more things you throw at a theory, and the more times the thing that tries to be thrown at the theory fails, it makes this theory even stronger, because everything that's thrown at it has failed, and then this pile of failures becomes its strength, the theory strength. So, and this is what I'm saying, that this is the only part where I kind of I won't say disagree, but where I think differently. I guess it's a disagreement, but it's where I think the Turiya is in our mind, the consciousness is in our mind, and it is created from the material realm. Probably, I'm not sure about that, but we just don't know how yet. So because we don't know how, we cannot say, I mean, we don't necessarily have to say that, well, therefore, you know, the consciousness cannot be created by the mind, it cannot be created by the material aspects, and therefore it must be this. You know, this is absolute truth. That's like, no, maybe we can say that the theory of the Atman is true for now, but when we have to provide it, obviously, with supporting evidence and become a theory like the theory of gravity. And until we get better science, this is something that will hold up until we can break it. And if it never gets broken, then it's going to continue to hold the theory true, like gravity.
David Chalmers, hard problem of consciousness.
I need to look at that. Sorry, I'm gonna take a picture real quick, because I want to look that up.
Yes, you had a question. Yes. Or Maya is not a real separate thing.
Projection of Brahman and call it Maya.
Yes.
None of this exists.
None of this exists apart from. This is really Brahman. It seems to be apart from Brahman. It seems to be a real independent Prakriti. It's not. According to Advaita Vedanta. Yes.
So, from the Advaita Vedanta point of view, is Sutra 2, Yoga Chitta 50 Loka, is this possible or valid?
It's possible, it's valid, but it's not necessary. Advaita will say, we'll see in the next class. Advaita will say, you are consciousness, regardless of Prakriti. And all you have to do is know yourself as consciousness. That I have to settle Prakriti into a particular state of calmness. My mind has to be settled into a particular state of yogic calmness. Then only I will know myself as Purusha. That's not true. You can, even in this state where the mind is moving, active, engaged with the world, thinking, feeling, enjoying, suffering. Even here, are you Purusha or not? Yes, you are. It should be possible to know yourself as Purusha. And if you know yourself as Purusha, the question is, upon what does your freedom depend? Upon what does your freedom depend? Does it depend upon calming the mind, which is a product of Prakriti, putting the mind into Samadhi? That gives you freedom. Or realizing yourself as Purusha, which is ever free anyway, that gives you freedom. If realizing yourself as Purusha, Aham Brahmasmi, if that gives you freedom, then you realize that way, whatever form necessary. Why is it necessary to put the mind in a particular form? Samadhi. One Uttarakhand sadhu said, in Hindi he said, if your moksha lies, if your freedom, peace, freedom lies in Samadhi, he said in Hindi, लो अपने प्यारे को समाधि के जेल खाने में बंद कर दिया. See, you put your beloved, that means God or whatever, your spiritual, you put your beloved in the jail of Samadhi. As long as I'm in Samadhi, it's all right. When I'm out of Samadhi, it's not all right. Vedanta, Advaita would say, no, that's a serious mistake. So anyway, that will come to later on. But I'm taking the Vedantic perspective. What will the yogic perspective be? One yogi told me once, I asked him, don't you like, he was doing Samadhi, practicing Samadhi in the high Himalayas. He used to live in a cave. I said, what about Vedanta? Don't you like Vedanta? And he said, yeah, it's all right. They talk a lot. They don't have experience. So the yogic response to all this will be, lots of tall talk, mister. But do you really know what you're talking about? Have you experienced it? So, yeah. So there are two perspectives. And there's a lot of discussion, which is correct. Because Advaita happily uses this, the techniques. They are all used for meditation. Totapuri taught all of this to Sri Ramakrishna to attain Samadhi. So all of these are used by Advaita. They are very powerful, very useful. See, Advaita uses the logical argumentation techniques from Nyaya.
Sorry. Real quick about he's talking about how Advaita Vedanta is a lot of talk but not a lot of experience. For some odd reason, this made me think about a lot of things that are going on in the United States with a lot of people thinking they know what it's like to experience being whatever it is they're complaining about. So obviously I don't know if a lot of people know, but there was a lot of issues with cops in the United States, and people are blaming cops and doing all this, like, oh, they should be doing this, should be doing that, but they've never experienced being a cop because they're looking from the outside in, kind of like how Advaita Vedanta people, what he's talking about, they're just nothing but talk but nothing experience. There was I remember watching this one video, an activist who really wanted to go after cops, but then he gets put into a situation, and it's a training situation, not a real deal, just a training of what they go through every day. And whenever he just went through the training, he understands. He understands now what it means to be a cop and why cops do certain things. Because before, I'm sorry, I can't remember the video, but it's just before he was blaming cops and telling cops you should be doing this, doing that. but he's never experienced being a cop until he went through one training course. That is all. One time. It's all it took for him to understand now why cops do things. And this goes back to what he was saying about how everyone's talk, but has never experienced it. And I think like that too now. I don't know what started my thought in that process, but I was obviously, like most people, we're able to criticize people without being in their experience. Now, there are certain things we can obviously criticize, but for the most part, you have to kind of go through what they experience to understand maybe why they do certain things. And even then, maybe you do go through the experience and then your thoughts are still the same. But, that's situational, obviously, but it just made me think about that. There's a lot of people in America that complained about cops at one point recently, and none of them knows what cops go through. This is a famous saying, not a famous saying, sorry. It's a saying that I've heard that I like. It's the fact that, like, the cops are basically, no one calls the cops to say, hey, just want to let you know you're doing a great job. No, it's usually to call them because there's a problem. They're the problem department. Anytime there's a problem, you call the cops. Anytime there's crap going down, you call the cops. Anytime there's problems going down, you call the cops. Anytime there's shooting going on, you call the cops. You don't call them to invite them over to say, hey, have a cake or anything like that. No, it's if there's crap, problem, or whatever going on, you call the cops, generally speaking. So that's all. They're the complaint department, basically, and that's all they get every single day. Well, depending on the situation, but most of the time, that's the only time you ever call them is for problems. And again, much like what he's talking about, you have to experience it, and I do agree with that.
Advaita takes the whole concept of pure consciousness from Sankhya and meditation techniques from yoga. So, but the approach is different. The whole philosophical approach is different. Who else had a question? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it seems to be quite a paradox. No, the real issue is consciousness. But then it seems that this unreal, illusory stuff, such as chitta, is needed in order for me to realize.
Okay, good. Only one, let me ask, we have made a valid point, but one little correction. This illusory stuff, we are too conditioned by Vedanta. Sankhya and Yoga will say this is not at all illusory. They are all very much real. Prakriti is real, nature is real, mind, body, everything is real. And you as consciousness are also real. Two reals have gotten mixed up and the difference is not clear. The difference has to be understood, and for that we need the help of the mind. The mind is the source of the confusion, here, chitta. And it will also clear up the confusion. But you are saying that the mind is needed. Correct, in one sense. That is the whole purpose of Prakriti in Sankhya. Prakriti is needed by Purusha for what? Experience. And Prakriti is needed by Purusha for what? For release, moksha. Only thing is, when Purusha gets that moksha, it realizes, I have always been free. But right now, it needs this. It needs all of this to be engaged in the world and to get freedom from the world also. To come to the Vedanta retreat in Star Lake, you need body, you need mind, and you need all of nature. The question becomes even more serious in Advaita Vedanta. Here the two real things are there and they are cooperating with each other. Understandable. They give a nice example in Sankhya. These are very old examples, even before the sutra literature. A few nice stories are there, very interesting. One is Purusha and Prakriti. They are like a lame man and a blind man. The blind man cannot see, and the lame man cannot go anywhere. But what they do is the blind man puts the lame man on his shoulders, and the blind man tells the lame man tells the blind man where to go and what is he seeing and all of that. And the lame man, the blind man carries the lame man wherever he wants to go. So the blind man is nature, material nature. And the lame man is consciousness. Consciousness cannot do anything by itself. But everything is done. Anything means nothing physical can be done by consciousness because consciousness is not physical. Nothing mental can also be done by consciousness because consciousness is not the mind. But everything can be experienced only by consciousness.
Whoa. Everything can be experienced only by consciousness. No. right? It can't. No, the mind experiences like. Let me play. Hold on.
Matter can do everything. Yeah. Matter, energy, time, space can do everything, but can't experience anything. Now you'd say, what kind of philosophy is this? This is the most basic kind of philosophy. If you think carefully about it, you don't need any scripture to come to this. Just sheer logical analysis of our experience will drive you to this.
But the experience of joy, happiness, sadness, all that is in the physical realm, though. Science can measure those things. As a matter of fact, I think, yeah, science can actually, there's antidepressants where you're not depressed. So there's ways to suppress sadness, let's put it that way. And there are drugs out there that'll make you blissed out, like Sadhguru said. But obviously there are drugs out there that'll make you blissed out, so happy, so joyful. Whether you are or not, it will just do it for you. It's chemicals. So the experience of the mind is something in the physical realm. It's kind of weird. Now I'm confused whether he's talking Advaita Vedanta or Sankhya. Or am I wrong in my thinking? Let me know, because like the way I think of the Turiya Atman is the fact that it's unaffected by the material realm. That includes emotions. That's what Osho, Sadhguru, I can't remember if Swami Sarvapriyananda has said that or not. In the English Swami, I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep calling him that. Tadatmananda? I can't remember his name. But anyways, yeah, the Turiya itself is unaffected by the material realm, which is part of the emotions. Am I wrong in that? Or is it because it's Sankhya? And that's the reason why it's said a little bit differently.
Think about it. All our experience, whatever you have done in life, whatever anybody can do in life and experience in life, has this structure, subject-object. If you investigate the object, you will find nature, Prakriti. If you investigate the subject, you will find at the back of it, consciousness. This is the basic idea behind Kapila, brilliant idea. And he stops here. Another idea was given by a great professor of religion in Chicago University many years ago, Mircea Eliade. He went to India, I think he was Hungarian or Romanian. He went to India, he met Rabindranath Tagore, he studied under Surendranath Dasgupta in Calcutta, he stayed there. Mircea Eliade. Then he came back to the West, he came to USA, and he became a very noted philosopher, a professor of religion. So in one of his books, he has written good books on yoga. In one of his books he says, notice that Sankhya comes to Purusha and Prakriti and stops there. After this, after Kapila, comes Buddha and then Shankara. And what did they do? Buddha pushes the Purusha into Prakriti. He denies that there is anything like Purusha, only a whirling mass of matter. If you realize that, you are free. And what does Shankara do? He pushes Prakriti into Purusha and calls it Brahman. So the two rebellious children of Kapila, one is Buddha and one is Shankara. Yes.
If Jivan Mukta is just to calm down the Prakriti, is that the...
So before I answer, they're almost the same then, identical, if it's just the material realm, which is everything exists within the material realm, or everything exists within the non-material realm, which is Atman, Turiya. Either way, they're both one and the same. It's just saying everything is everything, right? For the most part.
No. Jivan Mukta is calming down the Prakriti. What is the purpose of calming down Prakriti? We will see. Next sutra, let us see. What will happen when you calm it down?
Swamiji, one quick question. You know, in many places you talk about going beyond the gunas as well. So when the chitta is
Calm.
then it automatically you go beyond the gunas?
Right. What happens? It's a good question. What is calmness of the chitta? One way of understanding is is quietening down the vrittis, the movements of the chitta. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions, stop. Samadhi. Another way of looking at the same thing is that reduce the rajas and tamas of the chitta and make it very sattvic. That sattvic chitta easily goes into samadhi. Spirituality is basically, in terms of sattva, rajas, tamas, increase the sattva guna, maximize it and reduce these two. Then what will happen? Then that highly sattvic chitta will reveal to you that you are not the chitta. You are beyond the chitta, Purusha, always beyond the three gunas. Gita keeps telling you, go beyond the three gunas, go beyond. What does it mean, go beyond the three gunas? Now you can understand. You are identified with the body, mind, which are products of the three gunas. You are playing in a samsara, which is a product of the three gunas. But your real nature is Purusha, which is beyond the three gunas. Realize yourself as Purusha, that is going beyond the three gunas. Sri Ramakrishna explains very nicely. He says, a man was going in a forest and he was caught by three robbers. One robber wanted to kill him, tamas. Another robber wanted to bind him and rob him of all his wealth, rajas. And they did that. Luckily, tamas was not able to kill. Rajas said, let's just bind the fellow and leave him there. But the third robber was kind-hearted. They all robbed him nicely, but then the robber was kind-hearted. He set him free and took him to the road and said, this is a safe area. So you can go back in this way. You can call an Uber or something like that and don't come in this neighborhood. And this man was so happy. He said, you come with me, you saved me. Stockholm syndrome, you say? You saved me. You come with me back to my house, to the city. And this sattva, the robber said, no, I cannot go with you. I cannot go with you there. That is beyond my range because I am a robber too. My limit is here. You can go there because you are this actually. So that's a nice story. Sri Ramakrishna said, even sattva does not give you enlightenment. It is just a stage for enlightenment. It's necessary. All spirituality, your tapasya, your moral life, your fasting, your prayer, your puja, your meditation, study, discipline, all of that is meant to increase sattva and reduce these two. But even that sattva is not the ultimate goal. You have to go beyond the three gunas. You are beyond the three gunas. You had a question? I'm come to you.
You said revealed to you.
Now we'll come to that now. So what is all this then? What is the result of it? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, then what is the result? Third sutra. Let us come. Please repeat. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. We don't have much time. Let me do the third and fourth sutras quickly.
I want to make a road trip to go see him.
So what is the purpose of all this? Why should I take all the trouble to calm down the mind and attain samadhi? And there will be a whole process for that. Sutra will talk about Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, moral disciplines, then Asana, sitting, then Pranayama, breathing. We have to learn how to sit and breathe, yes. We are not sitting properly. A yoga teacher would be annoyed at all the postures he will see in this room.
Oh yeah, I'm sure me too.
And we are not breathing properly also. B.K.S. Iyengar, who was one of the source of Iyengar yoga in the West, he writes in his book, when he first opened the yoga studios here, Westerners would come and learn yoga. He said they were hardly breathing. They're so tense, the shallow upper body breathing. So hardly using their lung capacity. No wonder disease comes. Anyway, so pranayama. Then we have pratyahara, withdrawal from the world outside. 5 sense organs, starting outside. Then dharana, focus. Instead of scattered chitta vritti, focus, one chitta vritti. All chitta vrittis reduced to one. That focus will deepen into dhyana, meditation. That meditation deepens into samadhi, complete absorption, where the entire world is blanked out, one vritti alone remains, sampragyata samadhi. Then that one vritti also goes away. Asampragyata samadhi. It is revealed to you that you are not the mind. And then let's quickly do the third and fourth sutras. Third sutra. What will happen then? Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. Swarupe avasthanam. Tada, then, when your mind, the chitta vrittis have ceased, when you are in samadhi, then, drashtu, the seer. Who is the seer? Here physical seeing is not meant. Not even mental seeing. Awareness, consciousness. Purusha. The seer, swarupe, in own nature or own form. Rupa means form. Avasthana, stays, abides. Abides. The Purusha abides in its real nature then, when the mind is in samadhi. When the mind is in absolutely calm, in samadhi, you remain in your real nature. God remains as God. God is recognizable as God in the language of Alan Watts. Remember, Sankhya does not use the term God at all. Yoga uses the term God, but as the first teacher, Hiranyagarbha, in that sense. That is the purpose. Here Swami Vivekananda comments, what happens is, like a lake, where all the waves and ripples have ceased. It's one shining, calm surface. And the water is absolutely crystal clear. Two conditions. No waves, clear water. Clear water means the mind must be pure, sattvic. And no waves means samadhi. You say, can a sattvic mind be disturbed? Yes. Disturbed means not in a bad sense, but I've seen many pure and simple people, like sadhus I've seen, but also very restless. But that restlessness can easily be dealt with. They can, if they want, they can settle down in meditation like nobody else. Very pure. That restlessness is more like the restlessness of a child. We are restless deep inside. We are complicated people. They are restless on the surface. Inside they are very simple. Sri Ramakrishna, you wouldn't think of him as restless. When he had to go to Calcutta to somebody's house, the carriage would be called. He would be the first one to jump on the carriage and sit, waiting for him. I have seen very senior monks, spiritually advanced, they have to go on a train journey. Hours and hours ahead of schedule, they go and sit in the station. There's something there, I don't know what happens. I think when you are at that level, you will understand that probably. So then, what happens? When the lake is absolutely clear and no waves are there, you see through to the bottom. Do you remember the story the yogi told me on the bank of the river Ganga in Himalayas? In the winter, if you come, Swami, you will see the same river. Few thoughts are there, no ripples. And the water is so clear, not muddy, so clear. He said in Hindi, there's a wooden bridge there. वो bridge से चवन्नी, पुल से चवन्नी भी गिरा दोगे, वो देख पाओगे. If you throw a quarter from the bridge and it falls into the river and sinks to the bed of the river, you can read up the denomination of the coin from the top of the bridge. It's so clear and still. It almost it doesn't seem to be there at all, but it's water. And for plains folk like us, when at that time we're not used to snow and ice. I remember, we have time up to 12, right? Yeah. First time I encountered these mountain streams, I was going up to the Himalayas and the bus dropped me off. It was getting evening. I had to find my log cabin, otherwise you'd be in 10,000 feet in the Himalayas without a place to stay, and night is falling. The result is you're going to freeze to death on the first night in the Himalayas. Anyway, so I saw this little stream running across the road. Very clear water. I thought, okay, it's nice. It's just a little bit of water. I can walk across it. When I started walking, it's so cold, just ice melted. After some time, my legs became numb. I could barely move in the water. I got across. Okay. Yes?
Is that the vision that you would call as God when you see the bottom of the lake?
Yes, that's the if you use that language, they don't use that language. He says this, then the seer, who is the seer? You. Swarupe, in your real nature. What is your real nature? Not body, not mind, as awareness. Avasthanam abides. Yes.
You mentioned no waves and clear water.
Yeah.
In number 2, is it no waves or is it both clear water and no waves?
Well, in number 2, that is Yoga Chittavritti Nirodha, no waves.
Then where is the clear water coming in?
Assumed already. Yama Niyama. That is why, do you remember the Shankara's, the Advaita Vedanta matrix of sadhana? 3 levels. Chitta Shuddhi, purity of mind, clearing the water. Then Ekagrata, focus of mind, stilling the waves. Then Jnana comes. It's not all that different. You see? Practically, it's not all that different. The reason why we cannot still the waves is because the water is not clear. Yes.
Swami, so if somebody follows the Sankhya philosophy,
So clear the water first, and then you can calm the waves. Is that the procedure? The steps is clearing the water first and then calming the waves. So I wonder what that means to translate to. I guess remove dirty thoughts, and then try to clear thoughts.
when they are enlightened, they say two, because the ones who follow the Advaita Vedanta, like Ramakrishna said, not to one. We found Brahma is the only existing one. Those Sankhya philosophy people find and the enlightenment states where it's a one.
Yes, but they will say 2. Because why? Moment you say something, you're already down to the level of concepts and speech. That's an interesting point, because Advaita Vedanta, what Sri Ramakrishna says, the ultimate reality is the same, but there's a big problem there. It is beyond language and concepts. The moment you drag it down to the level of language and concepts, all your religious, philosophical conditioning will come into play. The Sankhyan will come back from Samadhi and say, I experienced myself as Purusha apart from Prakriti. The Advaitin will say, I realized I am Brahman, one existence of the universe. Which one is correct? Take your pick. The yogi or the devotee will say, I became one with my Krishna.
Swamiji, the Buddha says you come to Shunya. What is that?
We'll see later. Yeah, but can you not understand it that way? If Prakriti entirely disappears from you, then in that sense it will seem like a void, a complete emptiness. And can you describe it as Shunya? Yes, you can. Void. Void of what? Void of material nature. No world, no body, no thoughts, no mind. It's a void. So is it nothing? No. It is something. Consciousness is there. I once had this argument with my teacher, Nirodbaran Chakravarti. He was a philosophy professor who had retired and used to teach us brahmacharis in our monastery. So I was very enamored by Shunyavada of Nagarjuna, the philosophy of the void. I said, that's the ultimate conclusion you can come to. I mean, I don't want your Upanishad saying that is Brahman and all of that. That's you're believing that. But practically in experience and logic shows you it's a void. And he gave a very incisive thing, which I understood much later. He was a short man, disciple of Swami Abhedananda. Big eyes. And he looked at me with those big eyes and he said, but who knows the void? The void to whom? All right. Then last one, 4th one. At that time, the consciousness abides in its real nature. At other times, the question arises now, then other times what's happening? Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. 4th one. Vritti, modification of the mind. Sarupyam, identification. Itaratra, at other times. Itaratra means at other times. Other than what time? Samadhi. You see how it's connected. Itaratra, other than other times. Other than what? Other than then. Then means when? When the mind is in Samadhi. When the mind is in Samadhi, then the witness remains in its real nature as pure consciousness. At other times, the witness becomes identified with the modifications of the mind. You see, this is how you read the sutras. Anger comes in the mind. I am angry. Not that I am the consciousness which is the witness of the wave of anger in the mind. No. I am mad at you. Like this. Atha yoga anushasanam. Now starts the instruction on yoga. What is yoga? Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the vrittis of the chitta. And remember, what is chitta, what is vritti, like the sea and the waves. So chitta vritti nirodha. Why? What will happen then? What's the point? Tada, then. Then the witness will remain in its real nature. What real nature? Consciousness. Bring in all of the Sankhya philosophy there. Purusha, you will remain as Purusha. Then at other times, if then you remain as Purusha consciousness, at other times what happens? At other times, you will be identified with the vritti. Whatever is happening in the mind, you will get mixed up with that. It's true actually. It's a literal statement of the truth. What Advaita, so this you got it? This is the way to read it. What Advaita objects to is this language. Swarupe avasthanam itaratra. At that time, the witness remains in his pure consciousness nature. Advaita will say the witness always remains in his pure consciousness nature. At other times, it's identified with why. At other times, also, it's actually it's not that time or other time. It's knowing yourself and not knowing yourself. The actor, say Mr. Smith, who plays Macbeth in the role in Shakespeare in the Park. When he's playing Macbeth, he's still Mr. Smith. He has no problem there because he knows I'm Mr. Smith. He doesn't think I'm Macbeth. He feels like and acts like Macbeth to the best of his ability. And when he's not acting as Macbeth, he still knows I'm Mr. Smith. It's not that he becomes identified with Macbeth at that time, and when he stops playing Macbeth, then he is Mr. Smith. No. So are they confused, yogis and Sankhyas? Actually not. If you read the Vyasa Bhashya commentary, the Vyasa admits at all times consciousness remains as consciousness. It's only mixed up with the thoughts. It only seems to be mixed up with the thoughts. Then what is the problem? Problem is not really modification of the mind. Problem is ignorance and knowledge. If you know yourself as consciousness, then even in samadhi your consciousness, even while the mind has got chitta vritti, it is still consciousness.
So even they accept ignorance is the problem.
Yes. They accept ignorance is the problem. In samadhi, actually what happens, they call it viveka khyati. The difference becomes obvious. Khyati, flash. Viveka, separation. The separation between Purusha and Prakriti becomes obvious in samadhi. Once it's obvious, even when you're out of samadhi, you know. Although I'm fully mixed up in all of this, I am none of it. Yes.
If you were raised as a baby to think that he is Macbeth and everyone around him has always said you are Macbeth and then he grows up and he's still Macbeth.
Correct.
But actually he's Mr. Smith. Maybe he has to spend time
Correct.
in the Mr. Smith.
Correct. Environment, correct.
In order to
In
still
fact,
feel that he's Mr. Smith when he's acting.
it's a very ancient story, a Sankhyan story. There's cute stories are there. I didn't have time to mention it. So there is the son of a king. The story is a little archaic. Because of certain conditions, astrological conditions, he was exiled from the kingdom. And he was brought up by the Sabara tribe. You know, Sabaras are an ancient tribe in India. He was the forest dwellers. He was brought up by the Sabara tribe and he always thought, I am a Sabara, a forest dweller. Then many years later, the minister finds him and says, oh, prince, you are alive. You are a prince. Come and claim your kingdom. So he comes to the understanding, oh, I am not a Sabara tribesman. I never was a Sabara. I thought I was, but I always was a prince. And immediately he comes into possession of his kingdom. So this is the ancient story, Sankhyan story.
So, you know how when you say then and now and then and now, so it kind of comes across as that separation in terms of time.
Yes.
So then that sort of leads me to say that then Purusha and Prakriti are separate and they exist, right, from like the Sankhyan point of view. And that's why sort of it leads me like the Vedantic, like if you kind of from a Vedantic standpoint, that now and Purusha and Prakriti like together, right? And not have these as like separation.
Oh, right, you're right. The way you would do it is, now and then would not refer to time of samadhi and outside time of samadhi. Now and then would refer to knowledge and ignorance. In knowledge, you realize I am pure consciousness. In ignorance, at the time of ignorance, you realize that, you feel that I am body-mind. Once you have knowledge, even when, the way it is translated is, when Purusha, pure consciousness, is confronted with an active mind, it confuses itself with the mind and thinks of itself as the mind. And they give very nice examples. I don't have time for that. One example is trees reflected in the lake. Sarasi eva tatadrumaha, trees reflected in the lake. The lake is like Purusha, pure consciousness. And trees are like the movements of the mind. They're reflected in the lake, and the lake loses its understanding of itself as water. It sees, I am the trees. It never was the trees. The trees appeared in the lake. At no point the trees were in contact with the lake. So when you realize that, even when the trees are appearing in the lake, even then, at other times when the trees are appearing, then also it will think of itself, I am the water. Let the trees appear. Let as many, whole jungle, let it appear. Nothing to me. Not even one tree or one twig is in me. Similarly, all thoughts and activities of the mind, let them go on. I asked a great scholar, he was the head of the Howrah Pandit Samaj. What was his name? Saptatirtha. He was, I keep forgetting his name. He was a master of Vedanta and Sankhya and Yoga, and he got high degrees in each. He was 95 years at the time I met him. He died 1 year later.
Oh.
I was in a particular meeting, he was supposed to address it. And the old man, he insisted, there was a lot of trouble to take him on the stage. You need 2 people to lift him and put him on the stage. So even before the audience came, they had to take him up. It was a big operation to put him on the stage. So he was sitting alone in the stage. I thought, this is my chance to ask this question. What is the fundamental difference between the Advaita approach and the Sankhyan approach? So I went, and you have to shout in his ear, good ear. Advaita says this, Sankhya says that. What is the difference? He listened, and just 2 words. He said, he listened like this, and he said, even like this. Drishtir parthakya, difference in point of view. It's a difference of perspective. They're talking about the same thing. But there are other big philosophical differences. That Prakriti is not an independent reality, like in Sankhya. In Advaita, Prakriti is nothing other than you yourself. Advaita makes it one, non-dual. Sankhya, remember, Sankhya and Yoga are staunchly, strongly dualistic. Let's repeat the verses, the sutras. Atha yoganushasanam yogaschitta vritti nirodhaha tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam vritti sarupyam itaratra. None of this will enlighten us until you meditate.
I laughed too loud.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
Okay, when I was watching this, it just it made me want to go. I know it's already over an hour long, but it made me really want to just take a road trip, drive wherever he's at, and just sitting on one lecture, just for the experience alone. Obviously, sitting in one lecture, I'm not going to be automatically enlightened or anything like that. That'd be quite amazing. Sit down one time, boom, enlightenment. Oh man, got my money's worth. But no, like it'd be nice to, as far as the trip goes, it looks like I could actually hit up, I need to find out where he's in New York City. That's quite far away. But I could hit up Sadhguru's area and then to Swami's, and maybe look to see if there's any other teachers along the way, just to go there. And I don't know what to talk about, honestly. That's the thing. I need to find out what to discuss, or just to go there and experience. That's it. Don't even need to necessarily ask them or talk to them, just to experience it. I guess that's good enough. Maybe I'll have a question when I get over there. Who knows? And I was thinking, like, how would I plan it out, you know? Probably gonna be stinky because we're driving forever and try to save money and sleep in the car. Sleep in the need to get something to block out the window so no one knows I'm sleeping in the car. And then maybe get a hotel room whenever I get to the destination so I could shower. Need to sterilize the car after that long road trip though. Ooh, yeah. I don't know, it'd be pretty nice if I could do that, I think. Well, anyway, so the questions that I had earlier, did I get it wrong? Did I misunderstand, or did I miss something? It just, some of it seems a little off, and I just don't know if it's talking about Sankhya Yoga or the Sankhya teaching. Sorry, I can't quite remember the schools. It's been a while. A lot of the videos don't really talk about the schools except for the ones that I reacted to earlier, which was a while back. And or was it because of the Sankhya school, Sankhya teachings versus Advaita Vedantas? I'm not sure. But anyways, that's my reaction to this long episodes of Raja Yoga. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.